Readers,
reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears. Welcome back to the Brothers Gwynne channel for part 2 of our top 10 books of all time. We've limited ourselves to only allowing one book by each author or we may have only 3 authors in our piles, and so it was a little cheat code to get a few more in there because it's been so hard picking a top 10, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
So if you've not watched the first part already, I'd recommend going back, watching that one, and then getting to part 2, and we'll kick off straight away and get into our top 5 and some honourable mentions, which we will get to as well. So Ed, do you want to kick us off with your 4th favourite book of all time?
And my 4th pick is The Ill-Made Knight by Christian Cameron. Now, anyone who watches the channel knows that Christian Cameron / Miles Cameron is one of my favourite authors of all time. He is the GOAT of historical fiction, in my opinion. And he is also a real-life knight. So he does all the medieval reenacting, but he doesn't just do reenacting. He actually feel like he does more medieval living than he probably does more modern-day living. Now, The Ill-Made Knight is a book that I read about three years ago now, and it completely altered my life. Similar to what we were saying in the last video, how I'm very impressionable, this book was probably the first one to really capture my imagination.
This caused another awakening.
So much that it has an avalanche of research and many other books for me to read, and also the fact that this book made me join a medieval reenactment society, and now that's what I do most of the time. So this is the 14th century. It begins at the Battle of Poitiers, which is during the 100-Year War between England and France. Now, Christian Cameron's a master of that. I think he did his dissertation on the 100-Year War between England and France. Now, this is the tale of William Gold, a real-life character, a real-life hero, who makes his life throughout the 100-Year War, going all around Europe, in England as well, Italy, all the way down to Africa, and the islands around Greece as well. And The Ill-Made Knight is book 1. And the reason I think The Ill-Made Knight is probably my favourite of the series is there's 4 books at the moment. Book 5, Hawkwood's Sword, is coming out very soon in July. I think this is my favourite one because it has such a great arc, and the feeling at the end is just such satisfaction, which you rarely feel in historical fiction books because they're not as clear cut usually as beginning, middle, end. You know, this one feels very much like that the history was actually made for this book, which is amazing. The details in the writing here are just sublime and perfection, that they just captured my imagination so much, and they made me see the medieval period not for this brown, murky, muddy place where everyone's filthy, or you know, everyone has loads and loads and loads and loads of armor. It really opened my eyes and showed me that it's just like a modern society. You know, you've got all aspects of life in all jobs, all areas, and William Gold is such a fantastic character. It's told in first person, where William Gold starts off with him at a pub, and he's then talking about his life. And I love those kind of books. It feels like you're reading it around a campfire.
I mean, that's what
the story being told.
That's what Miles Cameron or Christian Cameron offers, isn't it? Is that detail, isn't it, that I've not found. I've not actually read this series. That I will be diving into it soon. I know, wicked child, but he really just adds those small, intimate details, and that really just helps to bring the story to life.
Yeah, and everything I read here, I feel like he knows. You know, this is 100% true.
It's like he's there.
Yeah, because you know, he knows how to cook the food. He knows how to wear all the clothes. He knows what fabrics they use. He knows all of the kind of the way they fought. All of the different moves, all of the texts that were around at that time. There's just such a plethora of detail that is hard to actually have in a book by an author who hasn't got that level of experience and knowledge. You know, that vast wealth of understanding of the time period and the many cultures within that time period. So The Ill-Made Knight is a fantastic book. If you like historical fiction, go and read this. If you like anything to do with the medieval period, go read this. If you like history, if you just want to see how the next step up from Bernard Cornwell, in my opinion, this is the greatest of historical fiction, go and check this out.
And my 4th choice for this so hard to compile list is Blood Meridian by the one, the only Cormac McCarthy. This, I mean, how do you summarize Blood Meridian? It is the most brutal book I've read. It's a blend between literary fiction and historical fiction.
And horror.
And horror. Okay, how am I going to summarize this? It is basically about the potential of evil that humanity has, and humanity's affinity for conflict and war, all for self-preservation. And Cormac McCarthy strips all of the glory and romanticism from war like this, leaving it bare to the authentic reality that these conflicts are. And it's mind-blowing, it's breathtaking. You have to take pauses. This isn't a book that you can read just in one go.
No.
There's some, they could be massive tomes, and you can read them in one sitting because they're just so easy to read. But this is impactful. This is very strong, powerful stuff, and you need to take this in bites. Have a break, sit in a very dark room,
have a Kit Kat,
have a Kit Kat, anything that gives you a bit of happiness, really. Bring it back to your life. But even though this is quite a negative book, it is something that I think everyone should read. It is fantastic. I mean, the way it is written, I mean, Cormac McCarthy, he's just a genius. I've read No Country for Old Men and The Road as well, and he alters his prose and his writing style completely to suit the style, tone and atmosphere that he is striving for individually with each novel. And in Blood Meridian, I think this is the pinnacle of his skill in a really interesting and engaging story. We have the character of Judge Holden, who some would argue is the personification of death itself. He is constantly surrounded by flies, and he has the rhetoric similar to that of Satan from Paradise Lost. People follow him because he speaks what they see as the truth, but they feel there's just something wrong about him, but they still follow him because they just can't pinpoint it, or they are too fearful to leave his side. And he is one of the greatest characters within literature, I would argue. He is one of the only characters, probably along with Chigga from No Country for Old Men, another
Cormac,
yeah. He's just a master.
Some good bad guys.
He does, doesn't he? He's a master of the antagonist, and I think it's not easy, but it's easier to make you hate a character than to make you fear them. And Judge Holden, you fear him. At least I did. I really feared him. And the last page, I won't say what happens in it, but it makes your hair stand on end, doesn't it? This whole story is magnificent, and I could talk about this for another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, I could go, minutes, but I will stop there and just say that Blood Meridian is fantastic literary fiction and one of my favourite books of all time.
Talking of Blood Meridian, this is my third choice, so me and William have a book that is the same on here. Might be the only one.
I think it is, actually.
Maybe.
We'll see as we get further on.
There is some building going on behind us, so if you hear any strange noises, it's not coming from us, it's coming from the builders behind us. But, so Blood Meridian, set in the 19th century, it's the tale of a boy called The Kid, how he leaves his home in Tennessee, he runs away, and he finds his way down in Texas. And then he finds his way with a group of filibusters entering Mexico. Now, this group are basically entering Mexico, gaining contracts, securing contracts for Native American scalps. So what they do is they go find a band of Native Americans camping. They will then slaughter them and kill them all. They will scalp them, and then they will sell those scalps to the Mexican government in return for, I think, about $100 each scalp was worth, which is a lot of money back then. So that sentence, just the premise there, sounds absolutely brutal, and this book is even more brutal than what that sounds. And it's a tale of how the men start off with, you know, a clear intention in mind, and they go into depravity, and they go down, and it's as if they're going down into the depths of hell. How the people they encounter, the people they become, are actually as if demonic. Now, the main characters William mentioned, the judge is one of the greatest characters in fiction today. And I think there are so many things that you could analyse about what he says, how he acts, some of his cowardly ways, some of his really brave ways, his anecdotes, the anecdotes that other characters tell about him, the amount of fear that
his
McCarthy is able to create around this character is pretty sublime, to be honest. Now, I love the 19th century. I love the history around there. This is a fascinating period, and again, talking about Texas's history is really bloody and pretty vile. And this just goes to show, you know, some of the people going through Texas, going down into Mexico, New Mexico, going around. It was horrific, because this is mostly true. There are passages in this book that I just had to write down when I was rereading this. I was tweeting all of the lines that I just thought were absolutely genius. So I spent most of my time writing out most of the book. It really is that good. There are just phrases here that are worded so beautifully, and they just reflect so much about the novel. Now, this is, I think, Cormac McCarthy's best work of art. I think all of his other books haven't really come close to the heights that he's hit in this. The commentaries that he's been able to display, and the writing style is just so akin to what I love about reading. Even though it's not easy to read, by all means, it's really not an easy read. There are, you know, so much of it that I probably don't grasp as much as many other people would. But that's also the beauty of this. When I read this a second time round, I enjoyed it even more. I knew what was coming. Stuff didn't shock me as much, but I was still shocked actually at what happened. And all of the little details, all the characters that you meet. And the fact that it's based on true stories makes it even grimmer, even darker. I always say there is nothing as grim dark as history, and here that sentence is completely and utterly correct.
And now my third choice on this list, it is Fool's Quest by Robin Hobb, the second book in Fitz and the Fool, Robin Hobb's final trilogy that she has written up to date. Oh my word, this book, I read all 9 of the books with Fitz, the 3 trilogies, in the space of a month, and when it ended, I had the biggest book hangover. You didn't leave your room. I really didn't. I had the biggest book hangover I've ever had. I'm probably still recovering. It's been over a year. Fitz is one of the most magnificent characters I've ever read, and obviously there is the advantage of when you're following someone for 9 books that obviously you do know them better and you're more attached. But also, I find often with characters you follow for that long, is you run out of growth and characterization, and so it can actually act as a deterrent. So it can sometimes serve as a disadvantage. But on top of the time you spend with Fitz, Robin Hobb is a master of characters, and Fitz is the embodiment of that, the epitome and the height of everything that Robin Hobb can do as a writer. In Fool's Quest onward, there's a moment in this that I have been waiting for 8 books, and anyone who's read this will know what I mean. I mean, when I reached this, it's around the middle of the book, and I sobbed, I was laughing in joy, and I was fist pumping the air, and I don't think I've ever done that with another book. I've cried at books, I've laughed at books, but for them all to happen at the same time is a feat. And oh my word, the emotions I felt during this is absolutely fantastic. I love this so much, and a reread is definitely in order. I'm going to be reading Robin Hobb's books again soon for sure.
That'll take you a couple of days then.
Yeah, I'll just lock myself away. I have my priorities straight, obviously. Fool's Quest is so magnificent. I love it so much. It has heart, doesn't it? That's what's at the centre of the story. It is the characters. And I love books that follow the characters, and that's what is important. And at this point, we've seen Fitz grow into an adult, and he's mature, but he also retains that charm and kind of that almost sense of naivety and like innocence because of how loyal he is. You just love him so much, and the surrounding cast as well. Shade, Ketrican, so many others that I won't say too many because again, there's a lot to talk about. Fool's Quest, it's written beautifully, it's lyrical, it's poetic. Robin Hobb is a fantastic writer, and on top of that, I think that this series actually has the best plot of any of her trilogies. I mean, I'm a wicked child. Again, I've not actually read her Ship of Magic series, which is the live ship traders, which is terrible because
Why not, Will?
I was like, I need more fits, and I jumped ahead. Which I'm sorry to those who think that is a crime. I will be going back and rectifying that soon. But so when I've read these back to back, this is the best plot of any of the 3 trilogies, and this is just in my eyes, in my opinion, just perfection in a book. I love it so much. So if you've not read any Robin Hobb before, start with the Farseer trilogy. It is fantasy at its best. Please do it. So 3rd spot on my list is Fool's Quest by Robin Hobb.
And here for my 2nd pick is a very old edition of Malice by what's his name? John Gwynne. This is book 1 of The Faith and the Fallen, and as some of you may know, we are John Gwynne's sons. Now this book has been with me since I remember reading it when Dad was writing it in the just before 2010, quite a few years before that, and I was reading it as Dad was writing it. I remember all the different beginnings, all the different characters, all the different names, so I still call some of the characters the very old names.
I mean, he started when I was born, didn't he? So 18 years.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a very long time. Now this Malice is just, it's my Fellowship of the Ring. It's the one that I've connected to the most out of The Faith and the Fallen. It's got all of those memories, it's got all those characters that I absolutely adore. It's got the times like the Shire in, there are happy times in this, which if you know Dad's writing, there's not many happy times for his characters, and there's a lot of death.
You have to cherish them, don't
absolutely. So book 1 of The Faith and the Fallen is a beauty in my opinion. Corban's my favourite character of all time. I love him. I looked up to him probably because he reminds me so much of Dad. I think Dad's actually written a lot of himself into Corban, maybe unwittingly, subconsciously, but yeah, absolutely. Corban was always had the morals, the ideals that I just was striving for, and it's as if reading about my role model, but it also got to the point where I felt like I was reading about my friends. And I knew about all the stories, I knew about so much about these characters, we would all talk about them so much. I remember Dad writing it when I was a really young boy, telling me the story, reading it to me as well, and I've just had all those experiences that have just fed into and enhanced my love of The Faith and the Fallen. Now The Faith and the Fallen is my favourite series of all time, there's no questioning it. I've read it so many times, probably I've read it more times than I've had fajitas, and they're my favourite dinner. And there's so much about this that I love. The Wolven, Corban and his friends, Varadis, the shield walls, the whole Celtic Roman mythology as well, the biblical references, the giants and the drakes, and there's just so many things here that I adore about Malice and The Faith and the Fallen. It's a book that I've been able to connect with, and it's a book that's kind of followed me throughout my childhood and been with me in those the sad moments, the happy times, the highs and the lows just of life in general. It's always been my companion. It's like having another brother or another best friend, and that's what this big book feels like to me. So this is my number 2 choice. It's taken something quite special to tip the top spot, but this is my 2nd favourite book of all time.
And the book that takes 2nd spot on my list is The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Rolling.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Tolkien.
The king.
The king, yes.
He is the emperor of fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my word. I've said this. I've said this with the
He's the ring bearer of fantasy.
I like that.
Thank you.
I really like that.
Or the Witch King of fantasy.
Okay, no. I said earlier that I discovered the Arthurian legend at a young age, and that is a passion that has stuck with me until now. And Lord of the Rings is the same. The Silmarillion is the height of that. When I first read the Silmarillion, I'd already read Lord of the Rings, I'd read The Hobbit. I played loads of games with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and everything about this, and Dad, Papa Gwynne himself, had told us some of the stories such as Beren and Luthien. And then when I actually dived into the Silmarillion, so the epic scale of Lord of the Rings is up here, it's beyond anything else, isn't it? Now, the Silmarillion is 10 times higher.
It's like level 100.
It is Sauron's master. It is Aragorn's more powerful ancestors. So, there. That's one book. Takes the epic scale. Characters, you've got about 1,000 to explore in depth. I mean, Silmarillion, I could go on a long list about how it achieves every single box, but it ticks everything. Everything you could want. Everything. I'd say, apart from the maybe opening chapter, some people might feel a bit overwhelmed by the information. This is perfect. Perfect. It's episodic of nature, with tales such as Beren and Luthien being isolated but linking to the overarching plot, which is about the Silmarils, which is a necklace of jewels, which they basically taint people. It's about avarice and greed. And with Tolkien, he has such powerful messages in all his stories. And as we know with people like Samwise Gamgee, friendship is what was most important to Tolkien. He wrote the Silmarillion partly when he was injured during his service in World War One. And so I think as a direct result of that, it does take a much darker tone than Lord of the Rings. There is hope, there is friendship. It's those same key things that we love so much about Lord of the Rings. But it is grimmer, it is sadder, it's heartbreaking. The amount of times I cried in this, I don't know why I carried on. It's just, it is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
but
torture.
It really is. It's told as if, so the narrator, it's an omniscient narrator. It's as if they were there. And it just tells the history. And that is just so engaging in a way that it just makes it feel real. From the tales of the children of Hurin to the fall of Gondolin to the beginning of the elves, the origins of mankind, the rise of Morgoth, and so much more. There is war, conflict, love, friendship, death, destruction, redemption, everything you can think of. It's in the Silmarillion, and it is magical. I think that in Middle-earth people have found a place that they love, and there is just that magical feeling about it. Tolkien managed to create something extraordinary, and something I don't think has been achieved on that level since. The life that he brings to his world, it's beyond words. It's more than techniques and skills. It's something in every word that brings such heart to what he writes, and it just brims with life, and it's so organic and natural. It's really hard to describe what just elevates this to the next level, but I think that I don't need to, because I think a lot of other people have read Lord of the Rings. Obviously, with how popular it is, a lot of people feel the same, and I'm so happy that they do, because it means I have lots of people to talk to about this magnificent, beautiful work. So second on this list is the Silmarillion. We did a video a few months ago about why you should read the Silmarillion, where basically I just let my love and the geekiness I have for Silmarillion, I let it out in one burst. So if you're interested in a bit more of a sales pitch for the Silmarillion, if you need it, which obviously many people have done it better than me, but if you want to watch our one, there'll be a link in the description below to that. And now we're going to go into a few honourable mentions before we unveil the top spot. So Ed, kick us off with your first honourable mention.
Honourable mention number 1 is The Sisters Brothers by, what's his name? Patrick DeWitt. There we go. Now, I love this book. It's so funny, and it actually really kick-started my new love of reading. Now, I've had phases with reading in the past where I've read a couple of books and I've stopped for a little while, as many people do, especially as I was in my late teens. I had many other better things to do, such as going out, having a few drinks, seeing my friends, all that kind of stuff. But I
got your priorities straight now.
Yeah, I rediscovered my reading. Was it last year or the year before?
It was beginning of last year,
around January. This was I went into Waterstones just after Christmas, had a little bit of Christmas money, and I bought this book. And I'd seen the film before, but the book are so much better, and I love it. The writing here about Charlie and Eli, the brothers, are fantastic. They remind me a little bit of You and I. Not sure who's who, but it's such a funny western about two brothers that go on a journey where they discover many different things, and they go across, I think, from Oregon to California, hunting someone, and the story takes a big twist. It doesn't go in the direction that a western you predict it actually would, but this is a great and hilarious read that kick-started my love of reading once again.
And my first honourable mention is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is the first instalment in the Book of the Ancestor trilogy. I've borrowed Papa Gwynne's copy for this just because I love this hardback edition. I'm actually going to just read the first line of Red Sister because it just is a premise for what this entire story feels like. It is important, when killing a nun, to ensure that you bring an army of sufficient size.
At least you didn't say Hun this time.
Yeah, I said... last time when I tried to read that sentence out, it took me about 10 attempts. I don't know why. It's quite an easy sentence.
Well,
it's
nun
lovely.
just doesn't look right, does it?
But you think... Really? Basically, this is a story about a group of warrior nuns, and at the heart of it is the character Nona Grey, who in this trilogy we follow through her formative years. She's basically, if you've seen the film Logan, it's the child. Wolverine's child.
She's crazy then.
Yeah, she's crazy, but you love her so much. I think that with Red Sister, so many people repel her and don't accept her, that when they finally do, she will do anything to look after those friends. And I think that it's something we've seen before, but Mark Lawrence does it in such a way.
Yeah.
Found family, exactly. There's something so compelling about that, isn't there? When you find your identity and you find the people who you belong with, and Nona Grey does, you will do anything to protect them, and they will do the same for her. And it's a very powerful story, and I love Red Sister. It's one of the best books that I have read, as why it's in this list. Surprise, surprise. And Nona Grey is one of the best protagonists out there. She is just awesome.
My second pick is Giles Christian's Wings of the Storm. Now, Giles Christian's a great historical fiction writer. William was talking about him earlier, about his writing of Lancelot. My favourite book of his is this by far. This is his the final book of his second Viking trilogy, set in the 8th century, I believe.
The Rise of Sigurd.
Yeah, The Rise of Sigurd. Now, Sigurd is a great, great character, and I love Wings of the Storm because of the conclusion. The final battle is very similar to kind of Bernard Cornwell vibes, where he ends with a big battle, and it is so satisfying. The battle is one of probably the best set pieces I've ever read in any book ever, and the stakes for the characters are so cooked that they're rare. But
I've never heard anyone say that before.
Yeah.
Also, we listened to this on Audible, didn't
Yes,
we?
yeah,
And
yeah.
Philip
Philip
Stevens.
Chase.
Philip Stevens.
Oh
is
no!
Awesome. So we love Philip Chase.
Philip
as well,
Chase
but
on the brains.
He is a reviewer.
Yeah.
But Philip
Philip
Stevens,
Stevens, there we go.
is fantastic.
Yeah, Philip Chase is also a great orator, but they're very good.
But in a
very
slightly different way,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And my second honourable mention is Sword in the Storm by David Gemmell. This is the first instalment of the Regante
Big
series.
DG.
So it is fancy inspired by the Roman invasion of, I think, Gaul. And if it's not about the invasion of Gaul, it's about the Roman versus Celtic cultures and this clash of tradition with the new ways. And the Regante are basically the Celtic tribes, and they are awesome. Conovar, who becomes known as the Demon Blade, is an awesome character. I think that whilst this is military fantasy and it's about those conflicts, large scale, awesome. David Gemmell does some awesome battles, doesn't he? He's great at writing action. But I think that what is probably elevates this above books like Legend with Druss, and another awesome battle, which basically the whole book is a battle. I think what elevates Sword in the Storm is that the characters, and they're fighting for something that you can really identify with, because it is about their own identity and about how they don't want that to be stolen from them. And so whilst it is great action, Conovar is one of the most amazing characters I've followed. I think that the conflicts he faces are so real. That's something David Gemmell really does well. He writes characters who are very flawed, very fallible, more so than most protagonists who are believable. But he does so where you still love them. They make terrible mistakes, and you're like, as you're reading it, you're like, oh no, don't do it, and then they do it. But still, you love them, and it is a great story. So my second honourable mention, Sword in the Storm.
And my final honourable mention is S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. Now, this is
an amazing
yeah, I read this
story.
when I was a young boy, and this is a fantastic book. Set, I think it's in the 50s, is it, or the 50s
Yeah,
or
I
the
think
60s?
50s or 60s.
And it's written by, I think S.E. Hinton was a teenager when she wrote this, but it was about a group of people called the Greasers, which are basically rockabillys, and the Socias, which are kind of the middle class society
So
children.
it is inspired by historical social divide.
Yeah, definitely. And it's basically about told by the Greasers' point of view, with a small family, and it's just a book about friendship and heartbreak, and it is a tragedy, and it really affected me as a child. I loved the film. I think the film's got
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, not the first name that springs to mind. Well, what's the other guy? One who does that. Dirty Dancing. What's his name? Patrick Swayze.
That's the
It's got
one.
Patrick Swayze in. He does that.
He did.
Oh
He
my
does
word.
that.
Patrick Swayze in. It's got
A great cast of.
I sound like
actors.
Ludo from Labyrinth, didn't I? What's his name? Emilio Estevez. There we go. That's the one I was thinking of. But yeah, it's got a great cast anyway.
The sound effects work.
Yeah, Ludo. But as I said, it's a tale of friendship and about it is a tragedy, and it basically there are two young boys who are the greasers. They go out and some of the socials start on them, and one of the boys accidentally kills one of the socials. Okay, so then they run away because they're going to be arrested for murder, and then it's about their story of how they run away and how the family of the greasers react to that as well. And it's just a phenomenal book written by S.E. Hinton, who was actually writing about two culture clashes that she was seeing at that time in
and
her childhood.
experiencing, so it's got that intimate nature to it as well,
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely. So it's well worth a read.
And my last honourable mention is Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. This is the first instalment in the Raven Shadow trilogy, and the main reason I'm picking this is as well as Anthony Ryan's got a great writing style, really smooth, accessible prose, as well as a great overarching plot, doesn't he? As well as the starting plot. But the main reason this is one of my favourite books, and it's one of yours as well, just narrowly missed out, it's on the margins of your list, is the character of Valen Alsorna.
Yeah, he's great.
He is above awesome. He is the greatest warrior, greatest tactician, but he's not like Kvothe. So I love Kvothe, but he's the best at everything just naturally.
Gary Stu.
But Valen, he fights for it so hard, and often he's not the best because he is himself, but he picks the right person for the right job. That's actually like the right man for the right job is actually what Thomas Piety always says in Peter McLean's Priest of
Yes,
Bones.
that's true.
And Valen Alsorna he's morally driven, but he will compromise, and I think that's very interesting. To have a protagonist who obviously the author wants you to identify with them, to sympathise with them and empathise, and anything to do with that. But by making compromises to his morals with the extreme situations he's put in this military fantasy book, you are going to be put in tough situations, and Valen is. And I think that the way Anthony Ryan does this just makes you love him even more, doesn't he? He's such a fully fleshed out character I think Anthony Ryan really thought out the psychology of Valen.
Yep.
And he really, the growth throughout the book is perfect, and I love this so much. And now we're getting to the bit this whole video has been building towards. We are now going to unveil our top picks. So Ed, will you do the honours first?
Go on then. Number one for me is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Now, I know we weren't allowed to have two books by the same author on, but Papa Gwynne...
An exception can be made.
He threatened me, said, if you don't have two of my books on, you're not going to have any dinner, I'm not going to make you any pasta anymore, and I can't live without pasta. So... I had to have it, I'm sorry. Anyway, no, this is my favourite book. This does flip between this and Malice. Just depends what mood you catch me on. And right now, I'm in a mega Shadow of the Gods mood. I recently listened to it on Audible, and I love it so much. It's just got everything I've ever wanted in a fantasy book. When Dad wrote it, I was literally just laying on my bed, just absolutely shocked the whole time. I felt like Harrison Ford when he was frozen. Like I just couldn't move. It was that good. Just like this.
You just had someone to...
I looked just like this. It's just like this. But The Shadow of the Gods is Dad's latest release. It came out in May. I read it last year. I read it a couple of times now, and I've listened to it as well. And I think it's just breathtaking. All of the arcs of the three characters. You can hone in on those characters so easily. They're so easily relatable, even though I don't go around killing people, which is, it's pretty good to be able to relate to a character who doesn't go around killing people in pubs. Anyway. I just love the whole world building. I'm a Viking geek. I love all of that, the Dark Ages history, the early medieval period. And I just adore how this has been drip fed into this fantasy tale, which is inspired by the Norse pantheons of Ragnarok. So, Shadow of the Gods, It's got everything I've ever wanted in a fantasy book. Hilarious character. I think the humor is great in this. I love all the authentic details of all, the tablet weaving and the braided beards, and all the swords and all the shields and the way they would use them, and the long ships, the drakars, and all this kind of stuff. All of the Icelandic in it is just fantastic. I love the Seidr magic and so many other things like that. There's so many aspects of the book that I love, and even more. Even if it had none of that, it's got the most amazing characters in the world. It's got Orca on a quest, and she is just formidable. She is the mother bear, basically. You've got Varg, an ex-slave who, the psychology behind him is it's just fantastic, and you feel so bad for him and you want him to do well. And also you have Elva, who's a bit of a dark horse in this book. In book 2, she's probably my favorite character. She has amazing moments, and I love how her story kicks off. And this is the only book I've ever read that describes troll testicles in such detail, so how could it not be top of the list?
That's the most important part, obviously.
Pendulous troll testicles. Were you going to say something, by the way, about when I was talking about Varg?
Yeah, so you mentioned about Varg that he's an ex-slave, and you said about his psychology.
Yeah.
And Sarah Reed's. I
Yes.
remember we had a conversation
with
about Shadow of the Gods,
Philip
which we can
Chase's
put
channel.
a link to it on Philip Chase's channel. And Sarah Reed is a psychologist, isn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And she said that Varg was her favourite character because the way he acted just seemed really authentic to her.
Yeah.
And so just thought I'd drop that.
Yeah,
nugget
thank you.
there.
Well, definitely, Sarah Reed is great. Definitely go check out her YouTube channel.
She's a
she has
great
such
reviewer.
fantastic thoughts that none of us had even contemplated, which was great. That's why I love talking with people about Shadow of the Gods. It's so much fun, guys, to grow up with all of Dad's writing. And it's been like another member of the family, hasn't it? All of Dad's books and his characters, and to finally now be able to talk to people it's an absolute honour for us. We were getting really emotional about it the other day, weren't we?
Yeah.
When we were talking about how we had the idea to start this YouTube channel because we saw the chat about that Philip Chase and some others did about Malice, and now finally we were actually on our own chat with them talking about the Shadow of the Gods, and what a moment for us. If we felt as if we just won gold at the Olympics. It was it was amazing, and
it really is
such
lovely.
a great community, and to see the love out there for Dad's books just makes us so happy.
My top spot is another Papa Gwynne book. So this is the first. I did not break the rules. I abide by the rules. You are an anarchist.
You're Captain America and I'm Iron Man.
That's us two. I mean, I think that I wish I was Captain America.
I'm Thor.
You wish you were
I
Thor.
wish I was Thor. I'm Thor in Avengers Endgame. Literally.
Playing Fortnite. But Ruin is my favourite book of all time. I'm not saying you are.
I'm joking. Carry on.
You have potential.
Sorry.
You could be Thor. You would lift me all day.
I'll give you a Thor in a minute.
Ruin is my
Thor
favourite book of all time. I think, as you were saying with Malice earlier, that it is about the sentimentality. I think that Ruin is the best book in the Faithful and the Fallen. I think the duel between, I won't say who for spoilers, but anyone who's read it will know. Oh my word.
So good.
That is scintillating. And it is awesome. And this is a chunky book. And as I was saying earlier, some massive books you have to take them in small chunks. This isn't one of them. You can read it in one go just because it is so accessible and easy to read, even though there is so much going on. It is epic to the next level. But it still retains that foundation in the intimate nature of what Papa Gwynne loves to write about. He said that when he writes, he wants to talk about what he thinks is most important in life, such as family, friendship, not vengeance, even though there's a lot of that. But he's talking about how those who are close to you are more important than getting what you want personally, because they mean more to you. And a lot of these books are about people reaching that conclusion and realising that. And Ruin is also, it has additional sentimental value because it's actually dedicated to me. And this is, I think, it's just when a book has that much... You've read books dedicated to
I'm
you
joking.
as well. And I'm really lucky that he has dedicated it to me. I mean, we love Papa Gwynne.
Yeah, you're lucky, mate.
And as you say...
You don't even make him cups of tea.
As you're saying that, Corban is like him, and we see Corban as a role model, and that's because we see Dad as a role model. And I think what he writes about in Ruin, just the moral code and guide of his books, really just speak volumes about that. Ruin is so important to me, as you were saying when you were growing up. As long as I've lived, Dad's been writing these books about the Fifth One Fallen. He's gone into a new world now, but still we talk about so fondly so many of the characters from the Banished Lands, and such quite emotional talking about it. They've been such a big part of our life, haven't they? It's just we sit around the table and we'll talk about them as if they're real. I mean, I can get annoying with how many questions I ask, and I will ask it. I saw that nod.
He's like, who's Brennan's great
See, I will ask about their backstory and about their ancestors, and he could just say, I don't know, and he sometimes has actually, but he will go through all the effort to tell me and to explain, and it's been, I've taken huge chunks out of his life with this, and it's just, I think we are so lucky to be able to just be near to him and just explore that avenue and really just make the most of it. And that's what, as you were saying, we love talking to other people about these books because there's so much that I've been waiting to talk about, especially with the Bloodsworn, but Ruin just has that special place in my heart, and I think it always will.
Yeah.
And so deserved fully, in my opinion, for every single word, all the characters, from the old Wolf Macquin to Corban, who strives to do the right thing but does make mistakes, to Gar, and just everyone in this crew of wonderful characters. Ruin takes the top spot for my favourite book of all time. Thank you for watching this part 2
We
video.
made it, Will.
We made it. I mean, we are passionate.
We've been
about
in
these
this summer
books,
house for 6 hours.
and it is the hottest day of the year.
Yeah.
I think you can see sweat dropping from us, but it's been worth it because I think that you really feel we were getting really excited choosing our favourite books, and it was painful.
So hard as well. Yeah,
it was painful.
I felt like I was
leaving others
abandoning like orphans.
I abandoned my child. I abandoned my child. I abandoned my boy.
Okay, that's emotional. I felt like I was abandoning like orphan puppies, you know, leaving my books on the bookshelf.
What?
It hurt that much, and but it's just something you got to do.
And yeah, everyone has to do that in life. And I'm not sure if you felt the same, Ed, but as we've been going through this list, apart from the pain of leaving other books behind, I think that talking about these has really just reminded us of why we love reading, isn't it? And why we love these books, because when we get into talking about them, it's
then
just
you want to go read them all again.
Exactly.
There's not
that
enough
feeling.
time in the world.
I know. See, there's so many new books to explore, but when you
know.
talk about them, the emotion that I attach to these and the memories as well, because that's often what makes a book. It's like people talk about music, that they say that when they listen to music from their childhood, you obviously relate it to memories. And these books, so many of them happen at key points in our lives, and they've triggered passions. Same for both of us. Arthurian legends, if they're not phases, they're lifestyles. And so thank you for watching this part 2. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found the first part interesting as well. And this is a video that we'll be looking to do every 6 months or maybe every year, because they do change on a regular basis, and we do love to read, so hopefully there'll be some more new editions in a few months. So
yeah, thank you for listening to us natter on about books, guys. We do appreciate it. Please let us know in the comments below what your favourite books of all time are. Do you have a favourite book? Do you have a book that you love since childhood? We would love to hear about all of those books, because we love expanding our TBR. Even though it's a mountain at the moment, we still want to explore even more books,
the mountain,
even more
could be
avenues
bigger.
of reading. So it could be bigger, maybe.
Maybe.
So on that note, guys, stay safe.
Truth and courage.
The Brothers Gwynne.